Welcome back to Reconfiguring Reality. I'm your hostess, Jessie,
Jericho.
And I'm Laura.
and we'd like to welcome you to this bonus episode on St. Patrick's Day. Everybody thinks St. Patrick's Day is just like this great Irish holiday where everybody just goes and gets drunk, but there's actually a really messed up backstory to it.
Is it messed up though? I didn't see it as
I,
messed up.
the reason why I say it's messed up is he came and just wiped out any religion that was not Christianity pretty much. And the theory, not theory, but they said he got rid of all the snakes in Ireland. It's really he got rid of all the pagans or non-Christians in Ireland.
Make it sound like he went and slaughtered all these people when in
Well,
reality he just
people were
converted them to
condemned.
Christianity or Christianity.
Yeah,
Christianity.
but see why back then you're supposed to be all Christian and everything, and you're supposed to love thy neighbor and blah 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 blah. Isn't that one of the things? Love thy neighbor.
Yes.
Just because someone else doesn't believe in the same thing as you, and they don't want to convert, doesn't mean they should be condemned to death. You should just love them as they are. What, would you condemn me to death because I don't believe in something you believe in?
So, to play devil's advocate, let me ask
Or
you this question.
is it the cultural I nowadays, no, I don't think that would ever happen. But back then it's hard for me to sit there and be like, okay, I can understand where they're coming from to a point, but at the same time I'm just like,
Well, think about it this way, okay? I'm not justifying the condemnation of people, but it's very easy for people to become violent when the culture dictates an abnormality.
so it's a
So,
cultural difference from like now and then,
right.
where
So, I
it's a
mean,
little
it's
bit
not
more
really different
tolerant.
well, people are still just as intolerant. It's just the subject matter changes. So, point in fact, if I were like, "Hey guys, how would you like to go and hang out with a bunch of pedophiles?" How would you
Oh,
feel
fuck
about that?
you.
Right. So most people want to kill them on site or bury them under a brick, right? Well, that's the same way that early adopters of Christianity or any religion for that matter, or had any sort of ideological difference was. It was your way is wrong, therefore you need to die. And
Mm.
because that's now I'm not saying that that justifies any sort of bad belief, out there just because we have a different of opinion. But back then, um, superstition and belief went hand in hand. Even within like the Catholic Church and things like that, there was still a lot of ancient rituals performed and different things, especially involving the Romans. They had a huge practice of adopting and absorbing other religions in order to
Mhm.
slowly convert people over anyway. So it's not, unheard of to do that. But I'm just saying, like, a lot of people do that. They demonize Christianity and say, well, they just went over cleansing the world. And I'm like, well, that was happening far before Christianity got involved with it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
every religion does that. There's never been a single religion that hasn't found its way through blood.
It's just Christianity is more used because of the fact, like, during King Henry VII time, when Catherine of Aragon's parents pushed all the Moorish people out of Spain because they weren't Catholic.
Yeah. And that's just it. Anytime that someone involves power, right? and a lust for greed, then you have corruption and things go
Mhm.
south very quickly. It's just like,
But
you
it's
know,
also who was it? Oh, today we were talking at work about it where it's something about there's a oh my god, brain fart. There's a monument for I'm assuming because I kind of half listened to what my boss was saying. There's a monument raised for like a battle against the colonizers and the indigenous people, and like one of his family members died in it, and his name is on it or something like that. And they're saying they need to take it down. And it's the victors always get to write history.
oh yeah, I mean that's
So,
just human nature, right? Like, I mean,
oh yeah,
atrocities get explained away all the time.
I'm
Um,
not, and like I told him, I'm like, I'm not justifying the slaughter of these indigenous people because we wanted to steal their land and everything like that. It's just I'm like, but it's a battle that happened, and it's sitting there and reminding people of it and all this other kind of stuff. But it's one of those things where it's like, where do you draw the line on rewriting history to a point?
well, and sometimes it's not even about rewriting it. It's just about a different point of view, right? Like, I'm Native American, for example.
Hmm.
And when you look at history through the lens of American history, Native Americans get put in a very like sort of victim light where these evil colonizers just walked over, bonked them all in the head and took all their stuff. And they forget that the Indian people had been killing themselves and tribes have been killing, murdering, kidnapping each other for, you know, centuries before we ever, the rest of
Yeah,
the
but it's
European
not
lines ever
like
got
this has
there.
only happened in America. It's happened all over the world.
Exactly.
The Roman, look at the Romans. They went all the way from Rome up to frickin' Ireland to Germany. Like they outstretched so far, and it's just whoever has power has the right to
Exactly.
take the land or whatever they want. It doesn't just happen. Because what is it, Spartacus? The history or the TV series Spartacus, you get to see that they have like what did they call the Germans? I can't even remember. It's been so long now. I'm gonna have to watch that. But it's just it's one of those things where it's like I may not like how history was written or how or anything like that, but it's just the fact that it's how it is.
So the thing
They
that
got
I
to deal
find
with it.
about this particular topic for this podcast is I'm looking at it through a Christian filter, where you're looking at it through a pagan filter.
Like I
So,
personally don't celebrate St. Patrick's Day because of that, but it's also I don't drink.
well,
I don't
I don't
how it's
celebrate
turned
it
in.
either because I'm not Irish and it's not my tradition. But
Yeah,
the
like
way that
I'm
we're viewing the
Irish.
history, though, I'm viewing it from the Christian standpoint, where I don't see anything in here about him killing people or anything like that. But maybe I overlooked that, you know.
I look at it as it may not be killing, but it's you killed a culture that you didn't agree with. You killed a belief system that you didn't. But I'm not saying it's wrong because it happens all throughout history.
But in my
So,
opinion, he was doing it as a way to bring people closer to God, and in his faith, that is what was needed to be done.
mhm.
Do you know what I mean? I
Yeah.
don't feel like it was malicious. I feel like it was in his mind, the way of life.
Mhm.
Well, to bring it into a modern focus, not to look at today, today's or society's new hot button topics, right? So a lot of traditionalists are angry at the LGBTQ movement, right? Like they're not mad because people are trying to be happier themselves. They're mad because they're forcing the world that our view is the right way, that you must be inclusive, that you must use this language, that you must do this and that. And it's infringing on people's rights in given areas that they're like, look, I respect you to be who you are and live your life your way, but you can't, claim oppression and victim, you know, uh, mentality just simply because I don't want to subscribe to everything that you say. And that essentially is the same thing that happened, right? With Christianity. This agenda from this group of marginalized people are claiming that the world must conform, otherwise they're this hatred and evil and whatever. Early Christians often did the same thing. In their mind, they were, because they believed their gospel, that they were trying to save the souls of these people who didn't know any better. But for the people who quote unquote didn't know any better, they were like, we're happy believing what we want to believe. We don't want to believe in your God and go to your church and read your Bible, right? So
Mhm.
oppression comes in all forms, and
But
even in the namesake of positive change.
but it's just like when the Catholic Spaniards took over Spain again and pushed out the Moorish people. There were people who said, "Oh yes, I'm Catholic," but in secret they were still Muslim or they were still Jewish.
Yeah, just
And
like the German
It's
occupation, right?
self-preservation.
Jews.
yeah, you preserve it. So that and in a way that's what happened obviously in like Ireland and any other place where paganism or anything like that was practiced is it may not have been written down, but it was passed, let's say, from generation to generation to generation of beliefs. And it's okay, we're going to preserve our lives and say we believe in this, but this is what we really believe, but you have to play this part.
All right.
Otherwise, you'll die. And then you also have the like heaven forbid there was the Salem witch trials where everybody freaked out, but you have so many you have during uh Queen Mary's time in on the throne in England where she's Catholic but her father split from the church and became, I don't even know what they were called, Lutheranism maybe, or something like along the lines of that, where like the king's the head of the church. She killed a whole bunch of Protestants or whatever they were. But the funny thing is she's called Bloody Mary, but yet her father killed and executed more people than she did, based on his beliefs.
Let's go
Which,
back to St.
yeah,
Patrick's
St.
Day.
Patrick's Day.
So,
Sorry, we digress.
so I did a little research and I found lots of information. Some of it was very interesting to me because I had not known it, but I wrote here that St. Patrick's Day is a holiday that's celebrated annually on March 17th, which is said to be the anniversary of the death of St. Patrick, who was a patron saint of Ireland who is believed to have died in 461. The Irish have observed this as a religious holiday for over 1,000 years. St. Patrick's Day falls during the Catholic season of Lent, which is the 40 days before Easter, and during which time the consumption of meat is prohibited. Although St. Patrick's Day was originally celebrated with religious feasts and services, it became a secular celebration of Irish culture when it reached the United States through Irish immigrants. So during the feast, the prohibition against eating meat was lifted so that they could have the Irish staple of bacon and cabbage.
And so the funny thing is corned beef and cabbage is an American made thing, like
Yes,
tradition.
and I have the reason why it changed.
Why did it change?
Because when it says it right here. In 1845, the Great Potato Famine hit Ireland. This is
Mm-hmm.
when close to 1 million Irish Catholics began running to the Americas to escape starvation. As the Irish immigrants spread out over the United States, they started to develop their own traditions. One such tradition is the annual dyeing of the Chicago River to be green, and another one is like they changed the bacon and cabbage to corned beef and cabbage because it was easier to get corned beef, I believe.
So he's a Roman Briton.
Right.
What does that mean? So he was born in
So
Britain, but it was Roman occupied Britain?
yes, it was.
Okay.
And he was born. It says that he was born in the
Fourth
fourth
century.
century.
We'll see.
And
Late fourth century.
his birth name was Maewyn Succat.
Oh. See, I don't.
Maewynsuccat. His parents were Calpurnius and Concessa. I can't say her name.
Mm.
His father was like a senator, He was a legal
Okay.
official, and Concesha was said to have some kind of relation to the higher ups in the Romanized area. Yeah,
Oh, so that's why okay, so because he was kidnapped at the age of 16 and taken to Ireland as a slave.
yeah. He was sold to a chieftain in Ireland. He spent 6 years as a herdsman for said slave driver.
And then he escaped, made his way back home. He became an ecclesiastic and many years later left Britain and returned to Ireland as a missionary.
Right. So the time that he was training and everything to become a priest is when he changed his name to Saint Patrick. I believe Patrick is like defined as like fatherly figure or something like that. So he changed his name to Saint Patrick while he was learning to be a priest. It is said that um, Patrick was a humble-minded man, continuously singing praises and giving thanks to God for choosing him as an instrument for turning those who worship, quote, idol and unclean things into the people of God. Because again, that's what Christians believe, right?
Yeah.
So he actually had a dream when he was in captivity that he would go home and learn to come back and be a missionary. That's how he dreamed about his escape. And you know he almost starved to death on his way
Oh,
home?
I did not.
Yeah.
So, a funny thing is leprechauns are uh, leprechauns. It says the red-haired, green-clothed or clothed leprechaun is commonly associated with St. Patrick's Day. The original Irish name for the figures of folklore is I'm gonna butcher this. Lobarison, meaning small-bodied fellow. Belief in leprechauns likely stemmed from Celtic beliefs in fairies, tiny men and women who could use their magical powers to serve good or evil. In Celtic folktales, leprechauns were cranky souls responsible for mending the shoes of other fairies.
Yes, and that was actually a big belief of theirs.
And
It
then
so did you know that leprechauns actually have their own holiday?
no, really?
Yeah, so May 13th is Leprechaun Day.
Oh, dang.
Yes. And leprechauns and pots of gold are part of Irish folklore, which is why they are associated with St. Patrick's Day. It's said that the leprechaun is one of the first people to have bring gold to Ireland.
Well, and so like everybody talks about how like you have to like the shamrocks. Well, the shamrock is actually it's called a seamroy,
Uh huh.
and for Celtics it was a sacred plant because it when those would show up you knew spring was coming.
Uh huh. Okay.
And then, according to legend, St. Patrick used the plant as a visual guide when explaining the Holy Trinity. By the 17th century, the shamrock had become a symbol of emerging Irish nationalism.
That is correct.
Because it's very rare to find a four-leaf clover, but a three-leaf clover, I can understand why he would use that.
Well, not only
Because,
that, but it's a figure of three. And the Holy
well,
Trinity
yeah,
is
but
three.
since they already considered it a sacred plant, he's trying to take something from their culture and use it as an explanation to kind of make them maybe not feel as how's the what's the, as like they're trying to rip everything away from them.
Or it could simply have been because it was readily available.
Probably.
It's not the only symbol of three that Christianity has taken from
No,
Celtic.
no, they have the they have other stuff.
Yeah, they use the
Let's
triquetra
see.
as well.
So he died March 17th, 461.
They
He
believe.
had a
They
yeah,
believe.
he established monasteries, churches, and schools.
Hmm. Did you know though that people tend to believe that St. Patrick's Day is a combination of two people and not just one?
Yeah. I I had one of those things and I saved it, but I can't seem to find it where it talked about the other one.
Palladius. Yeah. So Palladius was another pope that was in Ireland before St. Patrick, who had already started converting people to Christianity. So by the time that St. Patrick came back to Ireland, it wasn't everyone that he had to convert because there were already Christians there. Okay, so why is green associated with St. Patrick's Day?
Good question.
There's a myth that was debunked, and the myth is green has historically been associated with St. Patrick's Day. But in all reality, blue was the original color of St. Patrick.
Oh,
Green was used many, many years later. It says here that green was used in the 18th century to represent the cause of the supporters of Irish independence. And that's when the Irish flag and everything started adopting green instead of blue. But there's actually a color called St. Patrick blue.
I'll have to look at that.
Yeah. Did you know that Hallmark has a big hand in St. Patrick's Day cards?
What? There's St. Patrick's Day cards?
There are. Apparently, according to this website that I found, apparently they're very popular. Hallmark started producing the green themed cards back in the early 1920s. They now offer more than 100 cards dedicated to the holiday. Hallmark said 12 million Americans exchange St. Patrick Day cards every year. The company's
Holy.
sales are highest in the Northeast, mainly in New York City.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So, it says Patrick wrote his primary document, the Confessio, at the end of his life in answer to the actions and accusations of others towards his mission. He was considered to have been highly unorthodox for even wishing to return to Ireland. Converting pagans outside the fringes of the Roman Empire was beyond the comprehension of most 5th century Christians. This had been made clear to him when he was still a priest in Britain, at a time when he was being considered for the rank of bishop by his seniors. That process ended in formal rejection, however, when he brought into professional disgrace by one of his closest friends who betrayed intimate details of an apparent moral failing. Patrick nevertheless decided to follow what he considered to be divine inspiration and return to Ireland anyways. He was not authorized to do so, and in fact went against the express wishes of his family and his ecclesiastical superiors.
So the Confessa has been made part of the Catholic library.
Mhm.
And
Well, and
I
so
tried very hard to find it so that I could read excerpts of it, but it's written in Latin, and I haven't found anyone who translated it.
so he sold his personal inheritance in order to fund his efforts. He continued to be held in much disdain and mistrust by fellow Christians in Britain. He was accused of having ulterior motives for going back to Ireland on his own volition. His ability to attract healthy donations and his dispensing of payments to pagans was viewed as highly suspicious.
Yeah, I don't have any idea.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So he would pretty much get donations and then give it back to the people, even if they were pagan, and then okay. See, see. We needed this so I could read more into it and not hate the man even more.
right. No, I get it. No, and and I don't feel like he drove the snakes from Ireland. I don't think that has anything to do with driving people
Well, see,
away or banishing them, and has everything to do with converting them to Christianity.
yeah, and so the more I looked into it, the do I agree with it? No, I believe at least in my mind. But like I said, I'm not from 5th century Britain. So I would have a totally different viewpoint probably back then
And I mean, at the same
than I
time,
would now.
if you think about it, how do religions grow? Even a pagan religion, how do you grow? You talk to people and you
Mhm.
convert them into your religion, right?
Mhm.
So for him to be able to do that to all of Ireland, or at least the north and west part of Ireland, a lot of people, like, that's pretty impressive, and they celebrate that because that's their religion, I guess.
Yeah.
I have here today people of all backgrounds celebrate St. Patrick's Day, such as people throughout the United States, Canada, Australia, Japan, Singapore, and Russia.
Ooh.
People make traditional Irish recipes such as Irish soda bread, corned
Oh,
beef
that's good.
and cabbage, bacon and cabbage, one or the other, and champ. I had no idea what champ was, so I had to do a little deep dive.
Mhm.
Do you know what champ is?
No.
It's something that I'm sure you would love. Champ is mashed potatoes with scallions, butter, and milk. Right? People in the United States wear green, and up until the 1970s, Irish law mandated that pubs be closed on March 17th due to the celebration being a religious celebration in Ireland. However, beginning in 1955, the Irish government began a national campaign to use interest in St. Patrick's Day to drive tourism and showcase Ireland and Irish cultures to the rest of the world. So they opened their pubs, so now, today, people can drink as much over there as they do over here.
Mhm.
Yeah, the symbol of Irish pride is what
The Shamrock.
the celebration has really become part
Oh,
of now.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because when they fled to America, initially the Irish people weren't treated as equals. They were treated like
Scum.
third-class citizens.
Mhm.
They were used for slave labor and worked terrible conditions and jobs until the Chinese were brought over, in which case they
That
then
makes
took that slot, and many Irish were back to being poor and impoverished, which caused a criminal element to spring up.
That's where you get the Irish mob.
And so uh, Ireland, being very traditional over there, they eventually adopted the Western ideal of St. Patrick's Day because they're just like, well, yeah, let's celebrate our culture and our country, having been oppressed for so many years.
Right.
So, did you know that Boston held its first St. Patrick's Day parade in 1737, and then New York was the next one to have it in 1762?
I don't have anything about the Boston Parade in here, but I do have that St. Patrick's Day was observed in Ireland since around the 9th or 10th century, and that the first
Mm.
parade was actually in what is now called St. Augustine, Florida. It shows that the first parade was held on March 17th, 1601, in a Spanish colony. It was organized by the Spanish colony's Irish vicar, Ricardo Arter. So that parade was held but
Interesting.
not recorded. That one's still, like,
Yeah.
there's still controversy around whether or not that actually happened.
Yeah.
Then I have in 1772, homesick Irish soldiers serving in the English military marched to New York City.
You
Every
said 17.
72. So
See
after the
the
Boston one.
Yeah, because it says followed by New York in 1762 is what the Britannica website says
That's interesting.
for the first one in New York.
Um, I don't know if I wrote it down wrong or not, but I can definitely check my notes. Yeah, I do know that they tried to dye the Chicago River green. Well, they did dye it green,
Hmm.
and they used how many pounds? Where is it? 100 pounds of green vegetable dye into the river in 1962, and it was city pollution control workers that did it. They realized that it would turn the river green, and it was like green for a week or something like that. But in today's age, they only put 40 pounds of the dye in the river, which only leaves it green for a couple of hours. Right. Back to the parades. So the St. Patrick's Day Parade is the world's oldest and largest civilian parade in the United States.
Mm.
Okay, so I've done a little digging,
Mm-hmm.
and I think somewhere we got the dates wrong for the parades. I know that the dates that I said are from the articles that I've read, but according to a quick search, this says that the first St. Patrick's Day Parade in downtown Chicago was held on March 17th, 1843. The first recorded St. Patrick's Day Parade was held in New York City in 1762.
Yeah. For New York.
Right, but Chicago was 1843.
Mm.
Yep. When was the first St. Patrick's Day in the Midwest? Well, I mean, that was in the Midwest. St. Patrick's Day was first formally celebrated in Detroit in 1808. So
Oh,
Detroit,
wow.
Michigan was 1808.
Okay.
But everything I'm looking here is 1762 for New York City. The second largest St. Patrick's Day parade in the United States is in Savannah.
Georgia? I'm a little taken back by that.
Yeah, Savannah, Georgia. Here it is.
I would have never even had that on my freaking radar for like top 10.
Yeah. And it's right behind New York, of course.
Hmm.
That's very interesting. Go
I'm
Savannah.
surprised. I'm surprised Boston isn't like the number one.
Why Boston?
Um, the majority of people I know are Irish and Italian that live in Boston, like Boondock Saints. That's based in Boston. I know it's a movie, but it's just it shows like how proud Irish people are in freaking Boston.
Okay. So, um 2003, November 29th, 2003, the largest Irish ranking cities, like our largest Irish culture cities in the
Mhm.
United States. Number 1 is New York.
Oh, damn. See, I don't know this stuff. I assume.
Number 2 is Chicago.
Mm.
Number 3 is Boston.
Okay.
Number 4 is Philadelphia.
Mhm.
5 is San Francisco, California.
San Francisco.
6 is Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Mhm.
My good old hometown. 7 is Denver, Colorado. 8 is San Diego. 9 is Seattle. And 10 is Omaha.
Nebraska.
Savannah is not even on this list.
But yet they have the
They have the
second
second
largest St.
largest parade.
Patrick's. Wow.
That's pretty freaking amazing. Oh, Savannah. I'm sorry. Savannah is on this list as number 80.
Oh, 80. 80.
Yes. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today on our bonus episode of Reconfiguring Reality.
Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, put in your suggestions in the comments.
We'll be back with you again next week. So have a good week. Goodbye.
Bye.
Remember, it's not St. Patrick's Day, it's St. Patty's Day.